So now the first session, I hope you have seen the schedule. The first session is the mathematical foundation of the cybersecurity. So without wasting much time, I hand over to Professor Jyoti Ram from Max department, who is handling this session. And today's next session is deep learning. So today we have only 2 sessions, up to 3, I think up to 12:30 our sessions will be there today. And as per the schedule, if any changes there, I'll let you know. Thank you, students. If you have any clarification or anything, so once the session is over, we'll give some 5 minutes or 10 minutes to clarify your doubts. You can ask. Yeah, thank you. That's Jyoti sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's over to you. Yeah, you can start.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you, Anand sir and Karthik sir. Yeah, on behalf of NIT, I would like to thank SciSec Center also for giving us this opportunity to interact with students having various background. So yeah, without wasting time, I would like to get into the topic, which is mathematical fundamentals, basically. Yeah, for deep learning or in general for machine learning, in mathematics, you need calculus, probability theory, and maybe some multivariate calculus. So those topics are there, but which you might already know some basics of it, right? Of them, so that would suffice you to get started in this domain. But what I feel is that the one topic which is quite advanced in mathematics, which is involved and deeply involved in deep learning applications and machine learning applications, is linear algebra. So that is what we are going to focus, because once you have lots of data, then you have to play with matrices. So deep learning and in general some many machine learning applications use a lot of matrix based operations. Okay, so each matrix is nothing but a linear operator. So that we will define in few minutes. So the linear algebra is an abstraction of study of linear functions. Okay, linear algebra is all about studying linear functions, and matrix operations are one such functions. Yeah, so let us start with the easiest matrix. Okay, so that is called diagonal matrix. So in diagonal is can be a square matrix or a rectangular matrix, but mostly in deep learning applications it will be square. So once you have, if I say a 3 by 3 matrix, then you will have 3 columns and 3 rows in a matrix. So for example, here we have 4 by 4 matrix, but in which you could notice that only on the diagonal we have non-zero values. So that means a diagonal matrix is nothing but a matrix only. It's a subset of one special type of a matrix where all non-diagonal entries are zeros. All non-diagonal entries are zeros. And it is not necessary that all the entries on the diagonal should be non-zero. Some of them can be still zero as well, but not all of them can be zero on the diagonal, else it becomes a zero matrix which has no purpose or no application. So this is the diagonal matrix. So in this presentation, what we are going to represent the diagonal matrices by this notation, because if you see here, representing a diagonal matrix is easier, because in general any matrix of order n by n, if you have like 3 by 3 matrix, then you will have 9 entries altogether, right? Each row has 3 entries and there will be 3 rows in a 3 by 3 matrix. So that means 9 entries will be there in a 3 by 3 matrix. So representing a matrix of order 3 by 3 requires 9 elements, whereas in the diagonal matrix, if you see here, only the diagonal has non-zero values, so it is enough to list only those diagonal entries to represent a diagonal matrix. That is what we are doing here. This D11 represents the non-zero entry in the first row, first column. This D suffix a double 2, which represents the entry at the second row and second column, which is expected to be a non-zero entry as well. So like that, instead of n square elements, you will be having only n elements along the diagonal. So it is enough to represent only, it is enough to list only those diagonal elements to represent a diagonal matrix. So this is a notation, which why I am introducing this notation has a purpose when you see the implementation part of it, okay, because this is how it is defined in the Python library for this kind of operations. Yeah, so this is the matrix we are dealing with right now. So this matrix, as I said, this matrix can be written in the form diagonally on the it's a diagonal matrix with entries 5, 4, 1, 9. The order is very specific. It is particular specific to the order. Okay, you should maintain the order. So why we are interested in diagonal matrices? Because it is easy to operate with them. In machine learning applications, we are using matrices of very large sizes, like 10 to the 6 and 10 to the 7. It will be order of that size. So, but the computational power which is required to operate with that size matrices is very huge. You cannot do not many computations with that size matrix. Okay, so that is why if you have a diagonal matrix, then operating with diagonal matrices are easier. But you cannot pick matrices in your applications because the application gives defines that matrix that is not in your hands. So you cannot come up with a diagonal matrix for a specific application. Based on the application, based on the requirement, you will get some matrix. But still, there is a chance that you can convert whatever matrix it is with, if it has certain properties, then you can treat or you can deduce the given matrix to a diagonal matrix. So once you are able to do that, then your operations become faster. Okay. So for example, if you apply, so yeah, one simplest diagonal matrix is the identity matrix, wherein you have only all the diagonal entries are ones. Okay. So all the non-zero entries are zeros. All the non-diagonal entries are zeros. That is why it is diagonal matrix. But all the entries on the diagonal are ones. So it is a special matrix called identity matrix. If you apply this matrix on any vector of a suitable size, okay, suitably, if you apply this matrix, identity matrix of any size to a suitable vector, then the effect you see on that vector is nothing. It leaves the vector as it is. If you apply this matrix on a vector 2, 1, 4 here, then the result is nothing but again you are getting 2, 1, 4. Okay, so that is why it is called identity matrix. It leaves the vector as it is. It is not rotating that vector, it is not scaling the vector. So that is why it is identity matrix. So this is one simplest form of a diagonal matrix. Yeah. So now we are going to see more other type of a diagonal matrix, where instead of having all ones on the diagonal, we have some other numbers on the diagonal. So this has the effect of stretching a vector. So if you have some, assume that you have a three-dimensional vector here, x, y, z here. Then as a result, when you apply this matrix on a vector x, y, z, then what you get as a result is going to be is nothing but 2 times x minus y 3 times z is going to be the result of applying this matrix, right? So x is stretched is scaled by a factor of 2 because you are getting 2x here, then minus y. So that means with respect to y-axis, the vector will be reflected, right? Reflecting the vector in the y-axis. Then in the third coordinate also you are getting 3 times z. So that means the scaling factor here with respect to z-axis is going to be 3. Yeah, so the goal of this presentation is to enable you to apply the ideas of diagonalization. So yeah, I just introduced the term diagonalization. Okay, diagonal matrix is straight. What is given to you is a diagonal matrix. Diagonalization is what you do when you are given a non-diagonal matrix. Okay, so once you can, for some, for many matrices, not some, for many matrices, you can do diagonalization. Okay, then you can operate with it. Yeah. So for that, what should we do first? You should be able to understand how, given a general n by n matrix A, so when can we say that given n by n matrix A is diagonalizable, right? So for which the theory says it is, the given matrix A is diagonalizable if and only if there is a matrix which you can compute compute of course from A itself. Okay, this cannot be, this delta is not, okay, let me come to that later. Okay, so given a matrix A, you are trying to see whether you are able to get a matrix delta such that if you compute, or so the here you have three matrix multiplications. If you A is the given matrix, delta is the matrix you are deducing from A, and since this, if this delta matrix is invertible, then you can compute this delta inverse matrix. Then together if you compute delta inverse times A times delta, this is matrix multiplication. Okay, you are multiplying delta inverse matrix with the A matrix, that is the given matrix, with the result gets again multiplied by a delta matrix. Okay, so if you are able to get a suitable delta matrix, then by applying these two matrices on A in this manner, the result will be a diagonal matrix. So this is called a diagonalization, because A is the given matrix which is not diagonal, but you are able to deduce a diagonal matrix by these operations. Okay. Yeah. So as I said before, any matrix can be seen as a linear operator. A matrix is a linear operator which can be defined in terms of a function where f is the operator, f of A is nothing but A times x, where x is a suitable vector. If you have a 3 by 3 matrix here, then this is a three-dimensional vector x here. Okay, so what do we mean by linearity? Linearity means it distributes over the addition and subtraction. So if you apply the matrix A here over x plus y, then it is same as computing individually A times x and A times y, then adding them later. Okay, so that means either you can add the vectors before applying the matrix on them, or you can apply the matrix operation first, then you can add the result later. The result is going to be same. So this is the property of linearity. This property is called the linearity property, which is of course satisfied by matrices. Yeah. So, but now we have to dig a little bit deeper in order to see, but how do A is given, but how do we find that delta matrices, delta and delta inverse matrices, so that we can represent this A, or we can relate this A with a diagonal matrix. Okay. So given any matrix A, we can always interpret it as a linear transformation in a given coordinate system of n dimensions. So here, for example, we are considering a 2 by 2 matrix. See, this is a special matrix which is quite popular in linear algebra, because it is a rotation matrix. It does not do any scaling of a vector. So what I mean is that if you so suppose if you are working in R2 Euclidean space, R2 domain, Then assume that you have vector x comma y here. Okay, then if you apply this matrix on this vector x comma y, then what it does is that it rotates the given vector in anti-clockwise direction by 45 degrees. Okay, it just rotates this vector clockwise direction to 45 degrees. So this is a linear transformation. This is a linear transformation. So in R2, basically every linear transformation involves either rotation or stretching. Okay. So as I mentioned earlier, it is theorized that in theory, it is possible to represent this linear transformation as a diagonal matrix within another or different coordinate system. Okay. For which we have to identify a scalar, a particular scalar which holds for many such vectors. So what we are looking for is that there is a unknown scalar involved in this diagonalization process that we have to find first. Okay, by finding out those scalar that scaling factor. Okay, so here it is, finding scaling factor is important for diagonalization. There is a scalar multiplication of the vector relative to all the axes. Okay, not just for one x-axis or y-axis. For all the axes, it should be true. That scalar multiplication of a vector relative to all the axes, unknown scale factor. That scale factor is unknown for the given matrix, but we can find it without affecting direction or other properties, as I said before. So this linear transformation affects the direction of this vector, because after applying this vector, after applying this matrix on this vector, the direction of the vector changes now. Okay, but there are some matrices or there are some vectors for which the direction does not change, but only the length changes. So length, suppose if you have a matrix, assume a matrix which only stretches this vector without changing the direction, angle to the x-axis. Okay, so for those matrices, the vectors which are not changed by the direction after applying the matrix are called special vectors, namely eigenvectors. Okay, the vectors that purely undergoes only scaling, not rotation, are called eigenvectors. Yeah, that's what we are coming to now. So in the current coordinate system, you have this vector v here. After applying this matrix A to this vector v, then the result is nothing but what you are getting after applying this A to v is nothing but a scalar multiple of the vector again. Okay, so obviously by applying a matrix to any vector, you are expected to get another vector. You will be getting a vector after applying a matrix to any vector. But is there a relationship between that vector to the input vector? Okay, what is the relationship between the output vector and the input vector apart from being the result of applying this matrix A? So now you could directly see that what you get as an output of this A is nothing but the scalar multiple of the original vector, right? So here A is called the transformation matrix, and of course this V vector is assumed non-zero vector, and this lambda is the scalar. So this works with all the coordinates, all the coordinates right here. So this lambda is there with x-axis, x coordinate, y coordinate, and z coordinate in a three-dimensional system. Okay. So what it means is that the effect of applying A is nothing but the you see the same effect if you apply the lambda to the given vector, the scalar lambda to the given vector. this lambda is the scalar which results in the which gives you the same result if you apply the matrix A. For example, let us consider this matrix A. Here we have 3 by 3 matrix and a vector 1 4 1. Okay, so A times V, when you apply this matrix A on V, what you get is 2 times 2 8 2 is the resulting vector of this application of A on this vector V. Okay, but if you rewrite this 282 in terms of the given vector V, here you have 1 4 1, here you have 282. So you could see that it is nothing but 2 times the original vector. So you are applying the matrix actually, but what it does is that it doubles the given vector. It just doubles the given vector. So here you can see that this lambda, that scalar, is nothing but 2. Okay. When 2, the scalar is 2, then you can have another matrix which has the same effect, right? So instead of, if you see here, if you apply this A matrix to this vector, then it doubles this vector. The same effect you can get if you apply just this matrix on the vector. If you have, since what you have to do is you have to only double the vector, right? So you keep only 2 in the diagonal entries. So you place 2 in the diagonal of the identity matrix. This is nothing but 2 times the identity matrix. Okay, 2 times identity matrix is what you are seeing here. So then, which will also have the same effect as A on this particular V. It may not be true for other vectors, but for this particular V, this is true, right? So now, in applications, if you are able to find this, okay, now A has same effect on A, and this particular matrix have the same effect on this V. But would you like to use this A in your implementation or this diagonal matrix in your implementation? Right, that is more important, because when you deal with large size matrices, for example, here this representing this A needs at least 5 entries, 3 on the diagonal and 2 are here on the non-diagonal. So 5 entries are required. This matrix having the same effect needs only 3 entries for its representation. Okay, and moreover, for diagonal matrices, operating with diagonal matrices is easier compared to non-diagonal matrices. So that is what we are looking for when we do diagonalization of a matrix. So can we come up with a matrix which has the same effect of the given matrix? That is the process called diagonalization. So for some vector V, if this relationship holds, okay, if A times the vector, the matrix times the vector equal to some lambda times V is true for some vector V, then that we call that vector the eigenvector, and lambda the eigenvalue corresponding to this particular vector V. This lambda will not work for, may not work for other vectors, but for this vector this lambda works. So that is why we have this special name. Okay, eigenvector, if you are able to get such a relationship, then you call this V as an eigenvector and lambda is an eigenvalue. That scaling factor is called the eigenvalue for that vector. So for the geometrical interpretation is that under A, the orientation or the direction of V does not change, only length changes. So this lambda, if the lambda is 0.5, then the vector length is going to be half approximately. Okay. If lambda is 2, then the length will become double. Yeah, there are some remarks to be made regarding this regarding eigenvectors and eigenvalues. We do not count zero vector as an eigenvector because whatever scalar you have here, the zero vector, the relationship holds for zero vector. Okay, so it does not make any sense considering the applications we have. We want this lambda to be unique for a particular vector. A particular vector cannot have two eigenvalues. Okay, it can lambda value is going to be unique for each vector. But you can have scalar which is 0 as an eigenvalue. You are not allowing zero vector to be an eigenvector, but 0 can be an eigenvalue. And another fact is that if this relationship holds, then for any multiple of this vector v, for example, if you have some beta times v here, then due to the linearity of this a, okay, it becomes lambda times beta times v here. Okay, so that property is preserved if you replace this vector v with a scalar multiple, with a multiple of this vector. So the relationship holds with any scalar multiple of this vector v. Okay, so that's what this point says here. If v is a known eigenvector, that means if you get one eigenvector, then you get infinitely many of them, because you can take any scalar multiple of it. So if your v is a known eigenvector of a matrix, then beta times v, where beta is a scalar, non-zero scalar, yeah, that is very important, because if beta is 0, then the entire vector becomes zero vector. Zero vector cannot be an eigenvector. So for non of v, we have the property satisfied. Okay, so if you have one such v, then any scalar multiple of v is going to be an eigenvector as well. Again, so what about if you have two eigenvectors, say v1 and v2, then what about sum of them, right? So then if you have two eigenvectors v2, then sum of v1 plus v2 will also be an eigenvector, because again, if you have, instead of v, if you have v1 plus v2, since this a is linear, your a of v1 plus v2 become av1 plus av2. So individually they are eigenvectors, so the property will be satisfied. So if you have two different eigenvectors, then some of them will also be an eigenvectors. Yeah. So these are the things you need to know, because it is enough to find only few eigenvectors, then you end up getting infinitely many of them. Build the basics towards the diagonalization. Now we are going to do the diagonalization using eigenvectors. Okay, assume that lambda is an eigenvalue for the given matrix A into a particular eigenvector V. We all know that I is the identity matrix of the same dimensions as A. Then since lambda is an eigenvalue for this V, we know that A times V is nothing but lambda times V. Okay, that is why they are called eigenvalue and eigenvector. Then by rewriting this, you can rewrite this equation as A minus, okay, here instead of V, you can have this, you can assume that you have identity matrix here, because we know that applying identity matrix leaves the vector as it is. So you can very well replace this V vector by identity matrix of V. So like AV, you will have IV here. The result is same. then you can rewrite this equation as A. If you bring this right hand side to the left hand side, then A minus lambda times I times V. Since this is 0, you can, this is going to be 0 because these two are equal, so this is going to be 0. So you can write it in other way also. So you can say, you can bring this left hand side to the right hand side also. Lambda I times V minus A times V is also equal to 0. Now since this is 0, what we are going to do, we are getting a new matrix here, which is lambda times I minus A times V equal to 0. So what it says is that this V vector is an annihilator for this matrix lambda A. So in this representation, it is called an eigenvector. If you rewrite this equation, you could see that if you apply this matrix on V, you are getting 0. If you apply just A on V, you are getting lambda times V. Whereas if you are applying this matrix on V, you are getting a 0 vector. And this is the result finding eigenvalues. Okay, so for any eigenvalue, this is going to be true. So in order to find all the eigenvalues of a given matrix A, you have to deal with the, by equating this determinant of this matrix to 0, you can find all the eigenvalues. So that is why we have written the determinant of this is going to be 0 in order to find that this holds only for eigenvalues, not for any scalar, but for only those eigenvalues this condition is satisfied. So if you keep this condition, then by solving this, A is the given matrix, the only lambda is the only unknown here. So by solving for lambda from this determinant of the matrix, you get the possible values for the lambda corresponding to the given matrix A. So this equation leads us to find eigenvalues and eigenvectors for the given matrix. Okay. As we have seen before, we have to take lambda times I first. That means you keep this lambda as a variable, then multiply that I variable lambda with identity matrix, then subtract it from the matrix A. Okay. Then by considering the determinant of that matrix, you end up getting a polynomial equation in lambda, and by solving it, you get the values, possible values that are eigenvalues of the given matrix. So let us consider this example. This is too much of theory, I understand, but to go through this example, I think it should be easier to follow. To find eigenvalues of A, yeah, so I should have written this A matrix here. I'm sorry for that, I missed to give what is A here. Yeah, so here this is my A matrix. My A matrix is 2, 2, 4, 0, 4, 4, minus 2, 2, 6, and as I said before, this matrix is nothing but lambda times I. In the identity matrix you will see only once on the diagonal. Here this is lambda times I. So this is how it looks. Lambda times I will look like this. Lambda I minus A equals subtraction of between two matrices is an element-wise subtraction. Okay, is an element-wise subtraction. If you perform element-wise subtraction, then what you get here, lambda minus 2, 0, minus 2, 0, minus 4, what you are seeing here at the bottom. Okay, element-wise subtraction of these two matrices. Then, but what we have discussed, we have to consider the determinant of matrix. If you compute the determinant of this matrix, you could see that you will not get an integer value as the determinant because the lambda variable is involved here. So you will get some expression. Since this is a 3 by 3 matrix, we expect to get a one property you can verify. If you have a 2 by 2 matrix here, then determinant of that will have 2-degree polynomial in lambda. Since we have taken a 3 by 3 matrix here, we are getting a 3-degree polynomial here. So now by factoring this polynomial, we could see that this 3-degree polynomial can be written as a product of 3 linear factors. Okay, so which says that by equating them to 0, could see that lambda could be either 6 or 4 or 2. Okay, so 6, 4, 2 are the eigenvalues of the given matrix. Now we have found the eigenvalues, but corresponding what are the eigenvectors corresponding to the each of the eigenvalues, for which solve the homogeneous system of linear equations, because we know that for a eigenvalue lambda, this holds. If you consider this matrix, the matrices, if you consider the once you find this lambda value, then plug in any of those lambda values here, then in the resulting matrix, if you apply the resulting matrix vector, if 0, then that V vector can be taken as a vector. So
Professor Jyotiram, there is some disturbance in your voice actually.
Oh, is it audible, sir? Is it okay now?
It's okay, it was breaking in between. Now you can continue.
For example, we have seen that we have found that lambda could be either 6, 4 or 2. For example, for time being, we consider eigenvalue 4 right now. Okay, let's consider only eigenvalue 4 here. If you plug in 4 in the previous matrix, then as a result what you get is this matrix. Okay, so now we are interested in finding the eigenvector of this matrix, which is by simply you can you can apply this matrix on a generic vector x, y, z, and by equating this to 0, you can get the values for x, y, z corresponding to this matrix. Then that vector can act as an eigenvector for this particular eigenvalue. So that's what we are doing here. So one way of finding eigenvector is to do to convert this matrix into equivalent form by applying elementary row operations. So here, since time is I think not sufficient for me to cover the rest of the topic, I would skip because many of you know about these elementary row operations with which you convert a given matrix into equivalent form. So at the end, by doing several elementary row operations, you could get you are expected to get this particular matrix. Okay, so here assume that in this matrix there are only 3 non-zero entries. So if you apply this matrix to x, y, z vector here, then if you equate that to 0, then what you get is minus y equal to 0. And here, if you multiply this second row vector to the given vector x, y, z, you could see that z equal to 0. Okay, z equals 0. So the first condition says that the first row implies that x equal to y. The second row implies that your z coordinate is 0. So which means that in order for a vector to be an eigenvector of this matrix, your x has to be equal to y and your z has to be 0. Okay, so that's what we are having here. Okay. Your x1 that is 0 here. So yeah, vector. So this is true for any non-zero alpha here. You can replace alpha with 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, like that, anything. Any scalar is fine for this alpha. Surely this corresponding to this 4. Okay. Since this is not representing a single vector, for each value of alpha, you are getting one eigenvector. So this is in fact the representation for the set of eigenvectors corresponding to this eigenvalue 4. Yes, now we come to the main part, because we need to, for the given matrix A, how are we going to form this delta matrix, right? So this delta matrix, now I am saying, yeah, so this delta matrix is nothing but eigenvector, matrix of eigenvectors of this A. So given A, you are fine for each eigenvalue. So we have seen that for this 3 by 3 matrix A, we have seen 6 as an eigenvector, 4 as a possible eigenvector, and 2, sorry, eigenvalue. 6 is one possible eigenvalue, 4 is one possible eigenvalue, 2 is another possible eigenvalue. For each of these eigenvalues, you can find at least one eigenvector. At least one eigenvector you can find. Now, if you place those eigenvectors in a matrix, that will become your delta. Okay. But in order to have this multiplication, in order to have this it's not only enough to have this delta matrix, it is then from this delta matrix we have to compute the inverse of the delta matrix. Okay, and you all may know that not all the matrices are invertible. Okay, not all matrices have inverse. To have inverse, they need to meet additional condition, right? Because determinant of this delta should be non-zero. Only then its inverse exists. Then you have to compute inverse. Okay. So the other is the determinant of, since there is a matrix of eigenvectors of A, if you are working with a 3 by 3 matrix or 4 by 4 matrix, then finding the checking whether the determinant is not zero is relatively easy. Okay, is relatively easy. But if you are working with like 1000 by 1000 matrix and even larger than that, then computing the determinant is a computationally intensive operation, because it is okay, it is I think cubic operation. So when you have large matrix delta, instead of going for the instead of checking whether inverse exists or not using computation of determinant, what you can do is that you can check whether the given columns of the columns of the matrix linearly independent, which we have not defined so far. So if time permits, I will cover it later. Okay. So now for the given matrix, if you are able to find 3 eigenvectors, then by placing those eigenvectors in delta as columns of those of the matrix, then you get this delta. Then if those eigenvectors are linearly independent, that means if the determinant of this delta is non-zero, then delta must be invertible. Okay, if that is true, then you can, if delta inverse exists, then you can easily diagonalize this matrix A. For example, for lambda equal to 4, we have seen that alpha 0 is an eigenvector, can be an eigenvector. So for alpha, I have picked 1 as the value. So 1 1 0 is an eigenvector for 4 that we have derived. Similarly, for 2, we can easily verify that 0, -1, 2, 1 is the eigenvector corresponding to eigenvalue 2. Then if you see the third column of this delta matrix, 2, 2, 1, this is an eigenvector corresponding to the third eigenvalue, which is 6. Okay, so what I have done here, I have found first eigenvalues 2, 6, then I have found the I am using eigenvectors corresponding to each of these eigenvalues as columns of the delta matrix. So I have formed the delta matrix using the eigenvectors of each of these eigenvalues. So now from the given matrix A, I have computed delta matrix. Now it is easy to, later we will see that the inverse matrix exists for this delta because its determinant is not 0. So delta inverse is going to be this. Okay, delta inverse matrix is going to be this. So once you have delta and delta inverse, then you can diagonalize this A by computing this is delta inverse, this is the given matrix A, this is delta. Okay, so what I am doing is a matrix multiplication, delta inverse times A times delta. So the result of this multiplication of 3 matrices will give you a diagonal matrix. In that diagonal matrix, all your diagonal entries are going to be nothing but the eigenvalues. So this is the one of the most beautiful result in linear algebra, because from the given matrix we are deriving the delta matrix based on the eigenvectors of A, and on the left hand side you have the inverse matrix of the eigenvectors matrix. Then the multiplication gives you a diagonal matrix where on the diagonal you see the entries are nothing but the eigenvalues of the matrix A. This is the diagonalization process. Okay, so the diagonalization of A will take this form. If you find this matrix of eigenvectors P, you are given A matrix, you are forming this P matrix by considering the eigenvectors as columns of this P. Then if P is invertible, you compute this P inverse. Then when you compute this P inverse and P inverse times A times P, what you get is a diagonal matrix here. Along the diagonal, what you see are the lambda values. So here lambda 1 is 4, lambda 2 is 2, lambda 3 is 6 in our case. Yeah, I think I have time left only for the some demo. So before that I would like to cover. Yeah, this topic is not needed right now, but still I want to introduce this concept to you guys, because checking linearly whether the given vectors are linearly independent or not is very crucial for a diagonalization process. Okay, so in order to have this inverse exist for this delta matrix, the columns of the delta matrix should be linearly independent. So what is linearly independent? Linearly independent means there is no linear relationship between the vectors. Assume you have two vectors x and y. If you are able to write one vector as a scalar multiple of the other vector, for example, as I said, you have x, y, okay, or two vectors. Then if you are able to write x equal to some alpha times y, x equal to alpha times y, then there is a linear relationship between these two vectors. They are not independent because x is a function of y. One vector can be written as a linear function of the other. So there is a linear relationship. So they are not independent. They are not independent. Okay. So in order for them to be linearly independent, you should not be able to find any such relationship, linear relationship. If you are not able to write one vector as a linear combination of the other vectors, then any of the, okay, if you are given n vectors here, suppose that if you are not able to write any of these n vectors as a linear combination of the rest of the vectors, then they are linearly independent. Okay, so for which we say that mathematically it is defined as follows. You consider a linear combination of all these vectors. You are given n vectors here, then you have scalars here. Okay, so yeah, so a scalar multiple of v1 plus scalar multiple of v2 up to scalar multiple of the last vector vn, you equate it to 0. Then this equation holds all the scalars 0. So what it means, if this relationship holds for some non-zero coefficients of these vectors, then there we could see that there is a linear relationship between the vectors. So if there is no linear relationship between these n vectors, then all the coefficients must be 0. You could easily verify that. You just keep the first two coefficients non-zero. Okay, so assume this v1 as 1 and v2 as 1, then rest all the coefficients you keep it as 0. Then you could see that your v1 is nothing but equal to, v1 is going to be equal to minus times minus v2. So this is a linear relationship between v1 and v2. So if you consider this equation, if the vectors are linearly independent, in order for them not to have any linear relationship between them, then all the coefficients in this relationship in this equation should be 0. So that is linear independency. So this is enough. Instead of checking whether the determinant is not 0, you can, this is another way. Actually this works with dimension is large, dimension of the matrix is very large, then this method works well compared to the determinant method for checking whether the delta matrix has inverse or not. Yeah, so this is the example that I wanted to show. The vector set of, consider 3 vectors here. Your v1 is 0, 1, 3, v2 is 1, 2, minus 1, and v3 is 2, 5, 1. These vectors are not linearly independent. They are linearly dependent because consider v3. Your v3 is nothing but v1 plus 2 times v2. If you add 2 times v2 to the v1 vector, you are getting back v3 vector. So this is a linear relationship. That means, yeah, your v3, the third vector, is written as a linear combination of the previous 2 vectors. So there is a linear relationship between these 3 vectors. So they are not linearly independent. But suppose if you replace this third vector, if you remove this third vector, if you just consider the first 2 vectors v1 and v2, then no such relationship exists. So the first 2 vectors are linearly independent. You cannot write v1 as a scalar multiple of v2, or you cannot write v2 as a scalar multiple of v1. So they are linearly independent. If you remove the v3, if you include v3 in the set, then these 3 vectors are linearly dependent because there is a relationship between these 3 vectors. That is the crux of the story. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. With this, I think I want to show you the demo with which, yeah. So I will jump to summary. The idea is to introduce the concept of diagonalization, which is very well used in machine learning applications, for which we have considered the equation a times v equal to lambda times v. If you get this relationship, then you can call this lambda as an eigenvalue and this v as an eigenvector. Once you find these eigenvalues and eigenvectors, then yeah, you can find all the eigenvalues by using the determinant of this matrix. Okay, from this you can get all the eigenvalues and corresponding eigenvectors. Once you are getting you found all the eigenvalues and eigenvectors corresponding to them, then you can form this delta matrix, because columns of this delta matrix is nothing but the eigenvectors that you have found. Then you can find the inverse if they are linearly independent. Then if you compute this product of matrices, then this will diagonalize A. So now what it means is that instead of operating directly on this A, you can operate with the diagonal version of this A matrix. This product you can use instead of A for your applications, which will be more efficient. So as you know that, so this article came in 2004. You want to see, yeah. So this is about the eigenvector concept, which is used in the PageRank algorithm of Google. So eigenvectors, I could say that is arguably the main reason for Google's success. Okay. So you could, if you are more interested, you can see this article which deals with the PageRank algorithm based on the computation of eigenvectors. So the article says that the $25 billion eigenvector. So that eigenvector found by the Google founders for the application of PageRank algorithm is worth for $25 billion, because when Google company went public in 2004, the value of that company was $25 billion, and now we cannot imagine what the value could be. Apart from that, there are many other applications for this eigenvector concept in digital image processing, for compression of the image, and also for recovery of the image, for image sharpening, for compressing the image as well as for sharpening the image. You use this diagonalization method, and also in is very much used, wherein you need to diagonalize the covariance matrix involved in the principal component analysis of clustering algorithms. And obviously, one of the most successful algorithm in machine learning is support vector machines. There also eigenvalue decomposition is very crucial. Apart from that, natural language processing also uses this eigenvalue concept, eigenvector concept. Okay. Yeah. So it's time for demo. So hope all of you are able to see my screen. So here I have already coded. I'm using this Jupyter notebook, so that helps you to run your Python codes. Okay. So here, in order to work with, hello, yes.
So the little bit zoom that. For some
Okay. Zoom. Is it fine, sir, now? So basically in Python, we are using two libraries, NumPy, and in scientific library, we are using linear algebra library. So I have abbreviated it as LA for linear algebra and NumPy as NP. Okay. So here, in order to consider a matrix, this is how we are representing a matrix in Python. So in this NumPy library, so here within square brackets, each row is again represented using square brackets. So here 1 comma 0 is the first row of my matrix A, and 0 comma minus 2 is the second row of the matrix. Then if I print this matrix A, you could see that what's happening. Just a moment, I think. Yeah. Okay. So what is wrong here? Don't understand. Okay. It's not different. Okay. So I have to run it from the here. Okay. you could see that in order to have a matrix, it's a 2x2 matrix. 1 0 is my first row, 0 minus 2 is in my second row. Then I'm going to find the eigenvalues in the library library for linear algebra. I can call this function called EIG, which is a abbreviation for eigenvalue. Okay, if I write LA dot eigenvalue of A, then it gives me eigenvalues of the matrix. Okay, so again, what's happening here? So I will run on instead. Okay, so then okay, yeah. So then the result is that if you see here, my first array is the eigenvalues. So here it is represented as in the representation is in complex form, 0 plus 1 plus 0 j. This j is the instead of using I for the complex field, we are using j here in Python. So it is just the coefficient is 0. You can just take the real part of it. 1 and minus 2 are the eigenvalues of this matrix, and the second array gives you the eigenvectors. For this, eigenvectors are represented in columns. So first column is the eigenvector, 1 0 is the eigenvector corresponding to eigenvalue 1, and the second column 0, 0 1 is the eigenvalue corresponding to this minus 2 eigenvector value. Okay, yeah. So this, if you consider the first element in the array results, and if you use this dot real function, then what you see is the eigenvalues in the real form. Okay, 1 minus 2 are the real eigenvalues. Instead, you can choose eigenvalues dot real. You can directly print eigenvalues dot real for this matrix A that gives you 1 and minus 2 as the eigenvalues. For these eigenvalues, I am printing now the corresponding eigenvectors. Eigenvectors I am printing here. So the first column is the eigenvector corresponding to the first eigenvalue. The second order matters. Okay, the second column is corresponding to the eigenvalue minus 2. Then let us consider the example we have done in PPT. I think in PPT the matrix for diagonalization we have considered this matrix 2 2 4 0 4 4 minus 2 2 6. This was the matrix which I have already coded here. So this is the matrix A which I am using now, and we can verify now with this implementation whether the results we have seen in PPT is correct. For this matrix, I am calculating eigenvalues and eigenvectors for this matrix example we have discussed in the PPT. So for that, as we have seen before, the eigenvalues can be directly printed. See, eigenvalues, after computing the eigenvalues, I am fetching them in real form. So the eigenvalues here, the order is changed here. Here the eigenvalues are 6 4 2. That's what we have seen in the slides. So the eigenvalues of this matrix we have taken are 6 4 2. So I am calling them lambda 1 as 6, lambda 2 as 4, lambda 3 as 2. Okay, then as I said before, I am getting the eigenvalue I am considering for one eigenvector. So here for lambda 1 I am considering eigenvector. This 6 is an eigenvalue I am considering now for the implementation, for which 2 2 1 is the eigenvector. So now for eigenvectors, what has to hold? If you apply the matrix A on eigenvector V1, then you should get the eigenvalue times the vector. If you apply matrix A to the eigenvector, then what you should expect is the eigenvalue times the vector. So what happens when we apply this A to this V1? Okay. So what I am getting is 12, 12, 6 is the vector I am getting as a result of applying V1. Then what is my lambda 1 times V1? So from here you could see that by applying A to the V1, by computing lambda times V1, we are getting the same result. Here also 12, 12, 6, here also 12, 12, 6. So we have verified that A times V1 is 6 times V1. Now delta matrix, I am, hello?
Jyotiram, I think the voice is still breaking. I don't know.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I will make sure. Yeah, it's about
When
to
is
be
the next
over.
session? I think it's another some time, right? How long is your session?
Yeah, in 5 minutes, sir. In
Okay,
5 minutes.
fine. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So now, as I said before, for each of those eigen values, I have calculated eigen vectors. Okay, this is represented in column form. Okay, 1 known 0 is the eigenvector corresponding to 4. Minus 2 is the eigenvector corresponding to 2. 2 1 is the eigenvector corresponding to 6. Okay, so with these eigenvectors, by having these eigenvectors as columns, I have formed this delta matrix as in the PPT. Now I want to see whether this delta matrix is invertible. Okay, this, yeah, directly. Okay, now what I am doing right now is that I am computing delta inverse times A times delta directly. That I am defining it to be D. Okay, because in order to that I would end up getting a diagonal matrix D. So I have defined it like that. I'm calculating this D matrix by computing these 3 multiplications: delta inverse times A times delta here. So when I calculated that, you could see that what you are getting here is 4 to 6 diagonal, right? Wait. So yeah. So there is some rounding of error happening, because of which I'm getting this 12 and minus 12. Here it should be 0. Yeah, I'm not able to check it why it's happening here. Okay, let me check it later. Okay, so this is the, yeah, here I'm getting. So if you are computing this diagonal matrix, if you form the diagonal matrix using the eigenvalues 4 to 6, you should expect that matrix will have the diagonal matrix after computing those product. Diagonal matrix will have the eigenvalue on the diagonal. Okay. So now, what is the main another main application of having this diagonalization? Because computing matrix powers becomes very faster. Okay, it becomes very faster with diagonalization. Okay. For example, for the given matrix A, if you compute A power 25, so I am interested in computing A power 25 matrix. I am going to multiply the matrix A with itself 25 times. So for which the time taken here is 41 microseconds. Okay, 41 microseconds. Whereas if I use the diagonalization method of A, in the diagonalization method, it is enough. Instead of taking power, instead of working with A directly for computing its 25th power, I am just computing this 25th power for the diagonal matrix here in order to find the power for matrix A, 25th power for matrix A. Now with this diagonalization, you could see that it has taken only 10 microseconds. So this is, so computing directly the power of 25th power of A is 4 times costlier than computing the same with the diagonalization method. Okay, so diagonalization computes matrix powers much faster. That is one of the reason why this concept is being implemented in deep learning and machine learning applications. Okay, so this is the crux of the linear algebra that I want to teach you guys today, so that there are many more concepts in linear algebra that you still need to understand all the concepts required for the for working in deep learning applications. But this will give you the starting point. From here on, you can build your mathematical foundations required for deep learning applications. Thank you all for the opportunity. Yeah, that's it with my presentation.
Thank you, Professor Jyotiram. It was a good session, and
Thank you, sir.
I think I will start the next